Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Siegel.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Anyway, I want to welcome you all to another in our series of talks celebrating Services for Students with Disabilities 40th anniversary. And this is a very special talk for us, and I'll introduce our speaker in just 1 minute. There's just a few other announcements I want to make till we get to the sort of the main show or program, as it were. One is, I guess, in truth in advertising, I want you to all know that we are being taped. So if you don't wish to be put on tape, make sure to duck the camera. Jill, was there anything else I needed to add with regards to that? Okay. Secondly, like I said, this is one in a series of talks. We will be having 2 more events. Next month, we will be having another student talking, and that was Lloyd Shelton. If you don't know Lloyd, Lloyd is a master's student in the School of Social Work, and he'll be giving a talk on the intersectional nature of disability. So that will be back. For those of you who've been following this, all of our talks so far have been in the Hatcher Gallery for reasons that I won't go into. We weren't able to use that at this particular time, and Central Student Government was nice enough to allow us to use this room. So, but next month, that'll be on September 15th. It's a Monday, and I'm assuming that's at 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock, gallery room. We will once again be having, this is from, and you can do a mix and match. Taste all of these goodies. Next month we will be having goodies from Pizza House, and you can make a determination about which is the better quality food. And then I once again also want to remind everybody about the big event, which is going to be on Friday, October 17th, also in the Hatcher Gallery room, where we'll be doing an all-day conference. So we are finalizing the speakers. I can tell you 2 of the speakers that we definitely have. John Reardon. John is the head psychiatrist, director of the Depression Center, and he'll be giving a talk on the history of mood disorders and the future of treatment of mood disorders. We will have also the second speaker that we know is a faculty member in the College of Engineering, who is talking on, who's the lead in a project on the driverless cars. So he'll be giving a talk about driverless cars and the implications for people with different types of sensory and mobility impairments. Another speaker, we know there'll be a talk on the history of disability law in the United States, and the 4th speaker we're still sort of working on. So that's in October. Mark your calendars, we'd love you there. It's an all-day conference. That will be catered by Zingerman's. So if that alone isn't enough to entice you to get a free Zingerman's lunch, I don't know what is. So we'd like a really big crowd. Tell your friends, family, and neighbors. Bring everybody out. We want a big crowd, and there'll be some good speakers. It'll be a good day. Our interpreters for today, right? I'm supposed to, and I'm not sure which is which, is Julie Vance. And you must be Andrea Reckhoff. I did that correct. Okay. One last shout out that I want to give, and I don't mean to embarrass him, but I'm going to. There's somebody in the audience today who I haven't seen in a long time. He's been gone for various reasons and is back with us. Scott Williams, I want to welcome you back. It's great to see you.
Good to be here.
And those of you who don't know Scott should. He's the guru of accessibility. So Scott, welcome. It's good to see you, and I'm glad you're here. All right, now on to our today's speaker. Today's speaker is Ruth Anna Spooner. After experience teaching high school and college at English and Literatures at various levels of American Sign Language, and also teaching the deaf, Ruth Anna is currently pursuing a joint PhD in English and in education. She is in the process of completing her dissertation study on how linguistics and translations between American Sign Language and English might be used to facilitate the teaching of literature to deaf students. So without further ado, Ruth Ann Spoon. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, thank you all for the students at Disabilities Office for allowing me to come. Last year, I would say around February, Jill Rice, where is she? Okay, back there. She caught me and she says, "Oh, would you do a talk for this? Would you like to do a talk?" And I said, "What do you mean by a talk? A talk about what?" "Oh," she said, talk about your research work and everything you're doing." And I said, "Oh, sure, that should be easy. I can do that for an hour, no problem." So it's not often you have an audience of people who are stuck and have to listen to what I've been working and what I'm fascinated about. So I hope I'll be able to fascinate you with my research. So I'm Ruth Anna. I was a graduate, I'm a PhD student for English and Education, and I'm in my 4th year now, and I just finished collecting all my research for my dissertation, and that was about the last month, and so I've been doing a lot of, transcripting of that, of the videos, and it's a very slow process. So my brain is fried for this last month, so I'm happy to take it slow today. All right. Can everyone hear okay? Does the interpreter need to speak louder? Are we okay? All right. Okay. Now, one thing I want to start with. A little bit of background information. Because often I've noticed in the last few years, what happens is if I meet a person and they say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I explain that I'm a PhD student, they say, "Oh, so what's your research related to? What's your topic?" And then I say I'm looking into translating English literature, stories, and plays into ASL for deaf students. And I thought that was pretty clear and simple explanation. But then they looked at me and with a puzzled look, very polite, of course, and very nice, but still, what is the point of that? If they already have the book anyway, why do you need to translate it into ASL too? It seems, redundant. Then I realized, oh my gosh, I need to explain it more clearly so people understand. So to help you understand what I'm doing for this translation, I wanted to give you some background information about deaf students and the challenges they have as far as reading and writing. And once you understand that, then you'll be able to appreciate better the work that I'm doing. And that's what I'm hoping, at least. Okay? So now I'm going to start, and I'm going to ask you to partner up with, 2 or 3 people, and you're, just around you. And if you look around, you don't like the people sitting next to you, fine. No problem. Okay, so, and in your group, I really want you to brainstorm a list of as many novels and plays, poetry, short stories that you remember reading in your English classes back in the day, middle school and high school. And if you have to go so far back you can't remember, that's fine. Just throw in things that you see your kids reading at school, in middle school and high school. For example, I read Shakespeare, I read Poe, things like that. So make a list. And, you can put down the authors if you know them. Just brainstorm. You don't have to write it down. There won't be a test or anything. So, okay? I'll give you a few minutes to discuss it with us, and then we'll talk.
Everyone is fine.
Yes, that's all sure. Up in the jungle area. Catch 'em alive.
I did not.
Shakespeare, let's just say. Romeo and Juliet. Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain. What is it? John Truman, yeah. Absolutely.
I want to hear the stories. I want to hear the stories.
And see the movie. The Crucible. These are much closer than we actually. Oh, yeah,
Paper notation, mention it on first. So that's what I did.
Oh, God.
And I can shut it but I can say
Everyone, let's go back. Let's go back to me. Okay.
I'm sorry?
I know you're having so much fun chatting and talking about it. Now we need to move on. Okay. So, what are some of the titles that you thought of that you remember reading back in middle school and high school?
Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye.
Silas Marner.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yep.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Grapes of Wrath.
Jane Eyre.
The Great Gatsby.
Grapes of Wrath.
The Scarlet Letter.
Oh, yes. Great. Great. You actually remembered a lot. Ooh, you passed high school. Fabulous. Okay. So now the reason I wanted you to think about those things is because the sad fact is that today, a high percentage of deaf students that graduate high school, they've never read any of those novels. Maybe some students have, but most not. I could safely say around maybe 70–75% of them have never read any of those. Grapes of Wrath, Cyrus Marner, Frost, none of those. Shakespeare, nothing. So what I'm going to talk about today is access, equal access to literature. Because these students, they're smart. There's nothing wrong with their intelligence. They can communicate fluently. There's nothing wrong with their communication. But many of them struggle with learning English as a second language because they don't have complete access to hearing English. So their learning process for English is completely different. And it brings with it special challenges. So many of them graduate high school with an average reading level of 4th grade. Some students have a higher reading level, some have a lower reading level. The high school I graduated from was a deaf school, and I was the only one at grade level for reading, unfortunately. The closest person was at an 8th grade reading level. And then several were in 5th or 6th grade reading level, but some were at 1st and 2nd grade reading level. It really varied, and for various reasons, depending on if they had early exposure to language. It's a complicated discussion as far as that goes. But it's very interesting if you want to ask later, but we don't have a lot of time to talk about those accessibility issues. But my point is that 4th grade reading level, you can't have access to the kind of stories and plays and poetry with that reading level. So they don't read them. They don't have access at all. So in order to understand this, when I was a senior in high school, I'm going to tell you a story. I like stories, so. I was a senior in high school, and I was in AP English class. And I took it at the public school. They had a partnership with the deaf school. And so since I was at the higher reading level, I went, and it was a cooperative type of thing with the school. So I would go to the public school in the AP English class. I had an interpreter. And that year, we were reading Hamlet. How many of you have read Hamlet in high school? Yes? Most of you. Most of you. Okay. Good. Good. I'm not the only one who worked through that my senior year. That's really cool. So, when I was reading that play, I stayed at the dorm for the deaf school. And so there were some students that stayed at the dorm too because they lived too far away. So, and I was in sports, and so I had late games and early morning practice, so I stayed at the dorm pretty often. So when I arrived at the dorm in the afternoon with my Hamlet, that Shakespeare book was huge. It was a monster of a book. So when I went in the dorm, and I was sitting at the dining table, getting ready to do my homework, and to read the first part, Act 1. So I started reading it, and working my way through it. And then someone walked in the room, and was tapping me on the shoulder. I looked up. It was one of my friends. She was a junior, and her name was Hannah. And she looked at me, she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing my homework." "Come on, yeah, what does it look like I'm doing?" And she said, "No, I mean, what are you doing with that big book?" "Oh," and I said, "This is Shakespeare. It's for my English class." And she looked at me, "Shakespeare who?" she said. I thought she was joking at first. I said, "Come on, you know who Shakespeare is. He's the most famous English writer of the English language." And she looked at me, blank-faced. She said, "No, I don't." It was an awkward moment. Like, "Oh, okay." So I said, "It's just a play called Hamlet, whatever, it's no big deal." And she looked at me and she said, "Well, what's it about?" So she really wanted to know. And I said, "Well, it's a story about a prince, from Denmark, and his father is the king, and he dies, and then his uncle all of a sudden marries his mother and becomes king, and, and then there's a ghost, and the story, you know the story." So she looked at me, and she said, "There's a ghost? What happens next?" And I said, "I don't know." Oh, she said, "Oh, okay, fine." So, and she left. I thought, whatever, So then I kept working, reading through the literature. And then again, I was in the dorm, and I went back, I started reading again. And then someone came in the room, and guess who? And this time, she had a friend. It was Hannah, and she brought her friend Marcy. And the two of them came in, and they said, "Oh, there's that book again. Did you read any more?" I was telling Marcy about it, and she wanted to hear the story too. So I went back to the beginning and told them the story. The first act pretty much. I explained it. And then they said, "Oh, what happened next?" I said, "Oh, yeah." So, okay, they left, and they left me alone. And then the third afternoon, they came back, and I was in the dorm. I was in my bedroom, and I was opening up my backpack. And I swear they had some kind of radar. I don't know how they knew, but they showed up in my room. Whenever I pulled out that book, they came in, "Are you reading any more today? Did you read any more today?" So every day for a few weeks, they would find me when I was doing my homework, and they wanted to know what happened next in the play. And then one night, after the part where Hamlet has the huge fight with his mom, and is accusing her of being involved with the murder and everything, it's a very dramatic part. Both the girls started talking about, "Well, I think the mother's guilty. I think she was involved." And Marcy said, "Oh, no. She didn't. How could she know? She didn't know." And they started fighting about it. They started fighting with each other. And they're like, "Oh, remember when the ghost said this and this part in the play?" And they were really arguing about the plot. And I was looking at them, and I was like, that's the exact same conversation I was having in my AP English class. And those two girls, who really couldn't read well, I would guess they were about 5th grade reading level, and the other one was maybe 3rd grade reading level. But they were having a very intelligent, deep conversation about the story. And I thought, wow. And when that discussion finished, they looked at me and they said, "What happens next?" So when we were all finished with the play, Hannah looked at me and she said, "It's not fair." And I said, "What do you mean it's not fair?" She said, "You get to read all the fun stuff in your class. It's not fair." And I said, wait a minute. Have you seen this? Does that look fair? Does that look fun to you? And she said, well, yeah, it's hard, but it's fun. You know, I mean, look at what I have to do for my English class. And she pulled out a book. And it was a picture book. And I can't remember what picture book it was, but it was a picture with a duck and the rain boots on the cover. I do remember that. So it was probably a second grade reading level book. She said, look at this, it's so stupid. That's my English homework. There's no point, I don't want to do it. Yours is better. Oh.
So that story has been with me ever since that happened. It's influenced why I started doing what I'm doing now. They both struggled with reading. One was hard of hearing. She could hear some sounds, but her reading level was low. And they never really read anything that I read in high school. And that was the moment I realized all of the books that I read, all of these, they probably will never experience. They won't know who Shakespeare was. To this day, I don't think Hannah will know who Shakespeare is. Until that event had happened and I told her. And it made me pretty sad. Just because they couldn't read written English well enough to read all of these books, they would have no access to it. So that's the experience that really motivated me and pushed me to do this, what I'm doing now. And that's not the only experience. There's been a lot of experiences like that for deaf students. They are limited to minimal reading and basal readers. Even when they're juniors or seniors, they are reading books like this. So imagine yourself as an awkward 15-year-old or 16-year-old teenager trying to impress everyone, and you want to fit in and you want to be normal just like everyone else. You know how that is as a teenager. And then you want to be grown up and you want to be independent, and then this is what you have to do for your English class homework. No wonder they hate English and hate reading, and they dislike it, if that's the only thing they are able to do. And the problem with printed literature affects them and follows them into college as well. Many students who read well enough to get into a college or university still struggle a lot because they have to pass the college freshman writing class and then do a lot more writing in various classes for whatever major they choose. So 3 out of every 4 deaf students, when they begin college, tend to drop out. And the problem with the English and reading and writing, that is a big part of it. It's not all of it, but it's a huge part of the dropout rate. And access is the problem all over the board. So we have excellent services, we have interpreters, we have note takers, we have an FM system, we have a lot of different technology we can use, but right now we don't have anything to give the students access to the literature itself, to authentically experience the reading and writing. I have nothing against books like this. I love these books. They are wonderful books. But I loved them when I was a kid. Then I grew up. I think they're cute and wonderful, but they're not for teenagers. So the stories have no appeal for teenagers. Teenagers want stories that they can connect with, that have deep ideas and themes relating with life and death and love and hate and family and friends, relationships. All of these things are in literature like this. Ideas that they can connect with and challenge. Not books about ducks that get new rainbows. So limited or no access has caused quite a few problems for deaf students while they navigate English classes during school. Like I already said, the reading becomes boring, pointless to them. They're just looking for the right answer to answer on the test, because these type of books, they usually ask questions of what happened? What happened in the story? What happens when you give a mouse a cookie? And the right answer is he wants a glass of milk. It's not, oh, the mouse took the cookie and said thank you and then went to bed. That's not what happens. The answer is this or that, right or wrong. There's no ideas that require opinion, that require any type of debate or discussion or any type of analysis. So for students, they just look at the book, all right, what was the question? Okay, let me find, yep, there's the answer. That's not what reading is. That's not what reading should be, at least. It's more than just that. I guess there's two challenges many deaf students have. One being they can read and decode every word on the page. They can, many can, but they can't tell you what it means. And I know it's probably hard, it's a hard concept for people to understand because you can look at words and easily understand them. You don't have to think about it for a very long time. So I'm going to show you a sentence up here. I'm pretty sure you're intelligent enough, you can handle all of the words that are in the sentence. But I want you to tell me what it means. Try and figure out what the intent of the sentence is. And if you have a linguistic background, be quiet. You maybe have seen this before. So everyone has, you can read every single word, right? There's no complicated words or advanced vocabulary here. But does it make sense? Some of you are nodding, or nobody wants to commit to a yes or no. All right, I will explain what this means. Our brain tends to read through the sentence and think that raced is the main verb, but it's not. It's actually the horse fell. That's what it means. So which horse? The horse fell, the horse that was racing past the horse fell. So when you go back and reread the sentence again with that in mind, it makes complete sense. Does it? Kind of. Some people are nodding. The sentence, every word you can decode and understand what the words mean, but to picture what actually happened. So the barn fell, or the horse break, I'm not sure, you're not sure what's going on. Another sentence to try. I mean, so what does this even mean? It's not sarcastic. I mean, it's grammatically correct. It's not nonsense. Your brain is trying to make sense of some colorless ideas that are green, or you're not sure. It's not an impossible sentence. I mean, the reason I show you those two sentences, I want to give you just a taste of what deaf students experience as they read normal English sentences. They can read every word. They understand the vocabulary, but they don't understand what it means. The horse. They can't picture everything together and what it actually means. So even if they can sign all of those words, they still cannot connect the meaning with the picture in their head. All right? And then there's some deaf students who handle that better, that can read an English sentence and understand what it means, but their challenge is the vocabulary. Because the English language is a gorgeous mess. I mean, we have tons of words and vocabulary that mean almost the exact same thing. So for example, so with your friends from the group this morning, new friends, if you want to find some new friends, I want you to brainstorm as many synonyms of this word that you can. Angry, mad, furious, and so forth. See how many that you can come up with. All right? Go. Sorry. I felt kind of bad. And she's saying basic words.
I forward that all over to school.
Perturbed.
For my salary and for benefits, it's like about 20. Right now.
Annoyed is one of those words when you're having like a relationship fight.
That's right. I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
All right.
But they don't know what we're
Stop.
and then I'm like, ooh, this is designated.
Okay, so how many total do you think you came up with about? Just estimate how many you think you came up with. 10, 8, 25 in the back? Wow, smart group in the back up there. All right, so here are some that I came up with. There's plenty more than just this list. And this is the English language. There's tons of vocabulary, almost more words than any other language out there. So there's a lot of vocabulary to learn. Now, for deaf students, the vocabulary and grammar is very difficult to learn because they don't have the auditory access to that. How did you learn English? Do you remember learning English? Probably not. You were babies. You just listened. You soaked it all in. People were talking to you. People were talking around you. And you were able to pick up that language as your parents talked to each other. You heard your siblings talking. And you had that language around you. And it becomes part of you. And automatic. You don't even think about it. But deaf kids have none of that incidental learning around them. They can't just pick up language vicariously unless they are directly taught this word means that. They won't know it. So if they learn angry, then a little later they see livid. How are they supposed to know? They've never heard someone sometime someplace before say livid like you maybe have. So they look at that and they say, that's the first time that I've ever seen that word. So they have to learn each word one by one, which is a huge task. Thinking of how many thousands of words there are in the English language. Same goes for grammar. Now some deaf kids have some residual hearing with hearing aids or cochlear implants, FM systems, some type of technology. They're able to hear some things or they're just hard of hearing. But even those kids miss a ton of information that goes on around them. Through lip reading or trying to hear, or they only hear half of the word or half of the sentence. Maybe some people can hear high-pitched sounds, but they can't hear low-pitch. And they can hear consonants, but they can't catch those vowels. They can't hear the silent sounds. I had a hard of hearing friend in high school who had completely no idea that there were S's at the end of plural words. She never heard them. And then a teacher sat her down and said, no, you have to put an S on the end of something that there is a plural of. And she said, that was news to her because she completely missed that S. She could hear the word, but she couldn't hear an S. So her grammar was slightly messed up because of that. And sometimes they have partial information and it just makes it a lot harder. Or they just don't hear anything at all. Because you can completely misunderstand information and get confused, and there's conflicting information. It's happened to me recently. I have no hearing whatsoever, but I can lip read better than I will admit. But I was in a classroom, and 2 interpreters were sitting in the back of the classroom, and a girl walked in the room. It was before class, nothing was really happening, and a girl arrived, walked past them, and we were partially blocked. I was partially blocked in viewing the interpreters talking. And one said, oh, I could see them signing. This is what she said. Oh, I really like her motorcycle boots. But I couldn't see their sign because the girl walked right in front of the conversation, and but I could see her mouth, and this is what I saw. I really like her ponytail boots. So I'm like, what? So I'm looking at the girl's boots. What is a ponytail boot? I was so confused. Is there like a hair sticking out her neck? And I finally said, ponytail boots? What? No, motorcycle boots. It looks exactly the same on the mouth. Think about it. Motorcycle, ponytail. They look exactly the same. So completely misunderstood, and I was completely wrong with what they were talking about. And I'm pretty good at English. I like to think I am. But many deaf students don't even have any type of access with English, so they struggle with English anyways. So they're getting very confused and a lot of wrong information. So that's the challenge for them and for us, to try and figure out how to navigate written and spoken English and have the vocabulary and the grammar correct as well. Does that make sense? Okay. And another problem,
The students have never read anything that you've read at school. The kind of books and stories that are what people expect everyone to read, like Hamlet. 90% of you raised your hand and said, yes, you read that in school. Catcher in the Rye. If you didn't read it, you know about it, right? So all of these that we are expected to know and at least have superficial knowledge about, they don't have. So when they graduate high school and go out into the world, they meet someone and they say, oh yeah, Shakespeare. And they say, Shakespeare, who? What's that person gonna think? They're gonna look down at them. Oh, you're an idiot, you must be simple-minded or dumb. But they're not. They're a normal, intelligent individual. But they just have had no exposure at all. And so it's the socialization within our culture that they've lost. And it's not because they can't, it's just because they were never exposed to those books. They never had the chance to read them. They never had the chance to read that and say, oh, I hated that. Or, oh, I loved it. So. And then one question I'm often asked, why don't you just make it a movie? They can watch a movie of it, that solves the problem, right? Why do you need to translate it? You let Hollywood do the job for you, right? Well, movies can be great if they're done well. But that's true for any movie, right? So it can be great. It can really help because you can see that picture visualization, you can see that moving picture, what's happening in the plot, and that can help. However, you still have to read the captions. And many students, that'll go over their head. It helps, but it doesn't fix everything. Okay. So after all of that, we got caught up. Now you know why I'm doing these translations. Okay. It's not something, cool to add to the curriculum or anything like that. It's something to provide access to curriculum that that the students don't have right now. Okay? All right. Now, American Sign Language, ASL, it's a wonderful, rich tradition of storytelling and poetry already within that language. It's very visual, very dynamic. It's a beautiful tradition. And people tell stories. It's nothing new as far as literature, but translating English literature into ASL is new. We already have ASL poetry and storytelling. And maybe some of you have never seen that. Have you ever seen ASL poetry before? So I brought two videos that I'm going to show you. One is a story and one is a poem. The first one, this is the story. Princess Bellybutton and Karma the Dog. Before you start watching, I want to tell you a little bit about what to look for. so you can understand what I mean. And they're subtitles, so you won't be lost, don't worry. But I want you to understand what's going on with the hands as well. ASL tends to have a spatial, it's a 3D language, and everything is set up in space. And then it's moved. For example, there's a tree. This is the sign for tree. That means there's a tree right there, and there's a tree to my right. And then there's a man, and the man is coming along. This is the man, and he's walking. Is he walking by the tree, in front of the tree, or is he walking towards the tree? You can see that's different. Now he's climbing the tree. He's climbing the tree. Oh, he's way up. Now he's swinging. Oh, he fell. So I didn't use any signs at all. That was just handshakes representing different things in space. So you understood it, and you didn't know anything about sign language. So this story, you will see the man use many different hand shapes and gestures to describe people within the community and within the space. And that's how ASL storytelling works. It's a lot of things going on at the same time, okay? All right. Okay, you can't watch the whole story, sorry. Sorry, and I don't want you to fall asleep or anything, but it is a cute story. And I have the link if you really want to see it. You have to see it in the story, okay? So you saw that the man there, he had set up the space, he set up the city with the towers. You can see all the people walking around in this kingdom. You can see the fence, the wall, the beautiful girl with her wavy hair and her fluttery eyelashes and her cute rosy cheeks. You saw all that, and everything was visual. And you saw the signing, really he had a girl in space, he showed the people and the kingdom, but most everything was visually described. So now this is a poem. This is an ASL poem, it's very short, and we'll watch the whole thing. Now this man uses repetition in the poem, rhyming. And rhyming in ASL, use the same handshake over and over again. You can't just use anything. So you have to use the shape, like this is the 5 handshake, and this is the 1 handshake. So, and that tends to happen in almost all ASL poems. Sorry, there isn't captioning on this one, but really you don't need it. So just look at the title, The Two-Faced Friend. You can get an idea. You'll be able to understand without the subtitles. Okay, so you saw the 5-hand shape and the 1-hand shape? Except for that one time when he was a little mischievous and he did that. But that, you know, isn't the rocking poem. So that's an example of ASL literature as far as playing with the language. And deaf students do this all the time. They do storytelling, it's been a tradition. They tell the children's stories, poetry, and using the hand shapes and the language, they can play with it. So now I'm going to show you 2 English texts. One is a story and one is a poem. Now when you read it, this is your first language. Most of you, English is your first language. So when you read it, I want you to think in the back of your mind, how is it different? How is it the same from what you just saw in the signed representation of it? And what a different process it is for you, okay? All right, here's just a short snippet of the story, just a part of it. Okay, most of you finished? Done? Okay. I started to see people look around. I realized you were done. You're already done. So this is a very descriptive, very visual part of the story. You can see the house on the island, right? You can visualize that. You know, you know, picture this pretty cute little beach house, right? You're kind of a little bit intimidated and you have trepidation about it. So now I'm going to show you a poem. This is from The Raven by Poe. It's the first section only. Stanza. You've read it before, I'm sure. Right? Okay. Now that you finished reading that, we've seen the poem and the story in English. Now I want you to think about how it's different compared to what you just saw in the ASL literature. Think about the different things you can compare as far as the visual language compared to an auditory language. Because many of you hear the words in your head while you're reading. And the spatial, compared to a spatial language, and this, it's very flat. It's just on the page. And English words are in English word order. So this passage describes every time there's a new word, you know there's a new picture in your head, right? You see the house, and then you realize, oh, it's dark. So then your picture changes in your head as you process the words and the word order through time. But in ASL, it's a spatial language, so everything is going on at the same time. You see the tower, and you see the window, and the girl coming in the window. So there's layers within the language, and it's already moving. The characters are interacting with each other. You see the poem, you saw the gentleman move. He did a body shift, and he waved back and forth. No, and the characters were talking back and forth to each other. So sign becomes where all the characters are involved. The personification of the characters in ASL. So you role play each character, and you see the facial expression, and you see them move, and you know the tone for each character. In comparison to this, the written English, you have to pick the words and connect it to the meaning and figure out the tone and then put it into a big picture in your head. So this is two-dimensional, and ASL is three-dimensional. So the English is static and the ASL is a dynamic language. And so most deaf students, well, many deaf students, tend to use sign language, and they're very visual and they're used to that. And all their information comes through their eyes. And then when they go into school, they're given these words, this flat English on the page. And there's no movement, there's no expression. And they read it, and it's a different process to pick out those words, connect it to a meaning, and then make a picture in your head compared to something that is already there in 3D, and then being able to understand that in their head. It's a different kind of reading, so to speak.
So deaf students see the English and they think, well, what can I do with this? Versus seeing the story in sign language. So, with all of that said, let's talk about translations. Now, there have been, in the last 10 years or so, there's been awesome technology with YouTube, technology within the cameras, iPhones, flip cameras, iPads, you name it. A lot of people are making videos of books for little kids in sign language, which is great. Very popular thing to do right now, which is fantastic. But for middle school and high school age students, there's virtually nothing available. And I have searched and scoured the internet just to find maybe a few. So, and they're not available for teachers to use yet. So what I'm doing for my dissertation and research right now, one is developing translations of some stories and poems. I cannot do Shakespeare yet. I don't have the time, funding to do that huge of a play. But short stories, poetry, I'm translating those into ASL. And then I'm taking them to a deaf classroom and seeing how teachers use them, see how students react and absorb that information. I interview the students about their attitude towards readings, towards written English before and after they experience that translation. That's what I'm doing. And I just spent the last 5 months doing that, gathering that data, and interviewing the students. So I will show you a couple translations if you would like to see. You don't have to, but I'll show you. So you just read The Raven, the first part, so I will show you the translation that I did for that. Fair warning, it's a work in progress. All the translations are a work in progress. So ASL, I'm trying to mimic the rhyming through repetition of the same sign. So it'll be the same hand shape over and over again. And you'll see these hands just like this a lot. And you'll see this shape as well, a lot. And I use that to try to mimic the rhyming within the poem. Start with the introduction. I have to set up the name signs and certain symbols for the story, so I explain that here. Now the poem. Again, can't watch it all the way through, but I hope you'll notice some of the rhyming within there and the repetition. It's a challenge to translate poetry because rhyming in one language is never the same in another. And now, Emily Dickinson. That's a whole different flavor of poetry. I'll show you 3 short poems there. there's no rhyming within this. There's not a lot of rhyming in her poetry anyways. It's slanted rhyming, so kind of rhyming, but not really. You probably won't notice that as clearly in this. Okay, so that's Emily Dickinson. It's a different type of poetry. You can see the difference between the rhyming poetry and hers. The last one is brief. It's a short story from O. Henry's. You only see the first few minutes. I cannot show you the whole thing. It's 25 minutes, so. Okay, so those are short story translations that I have done. This project, the goal of it is to have access to literature. Because translation is nothing new. Translation from French, Italian, Spanish into English, and then English into those languages. That's nothing new. I mean, I read the Brothers Karamazov. It's Russian. Obviously, I do not know Russian language, but I read the English translation of it, and most of you have read that as well. It happens, quite common. There's a lot of translations between many languages, but with ASL, that hasn't happened yet. This project will be one way to validate ASL as an equal language, because it is deep enough and rich enough to handle translations. You can do that. And then also to validate deaf students as well. The language that they use every day, and provide them access in ways that they're used to, ways that they already know and use their language. And also, I'm not suggesting that we should take a short story and translate it and put it in English, put it in an English class and replace the text and throw out the English itself. No, just use the ASL as a bridge to help the students practice different reading skills, different analytical skills, work on their language, and use the language that they prefer and bridge them over to eventually reading English themselves, because it is crucial. They need to learn English to be in this culture and be in this world. So use it as a bridge to access the language, not to replace. All right? So right now, the research question is ongoing. How do students' attitude change towards English? Does it change? Are they more motivated to engage with stories and engage with the text if they have the translation available? Because there's a lot of research that education is based on. Students' motivation to read and how to boost their reading motivation. Motivation is a huge factor in reading for students. If we can help the students become more engaged, then they'll maybe be more want to read English and read more books. So, it's all about access. So the question people often ask me, so what is the point of the translation? You already have the text in English. If they were born here, they grew up here, they should be able to read it. Duh. But that isn't the case. The text is there, yes, but they do not have access to it at all. That is the problem. So the translations and the project that I'm working on hopefully will be a beginning step of a new thing to come in the future, of new ways to provide access to something that they've never had access to before. So that's all I have for today. I'm open to questions, comments. If I wasn't clear about something or you want to know more about something, feel free to ask. Yes? In the back.
It's a wonderful project. I'm really in awe. I wanted to say that, and you probably know this, that most English-speaking people who are not deaf don't realize this at all. They have no idea. I didn't realize it myself until fairly recently when I read Andrew Solomon's Far from the Tree on Deafness, that this is a completely different thing. I think most people, and I'm sure you already know this, as I said, think it's just a word-for-word translation of the English language. So I think there's a lot of education that has to reach the general public too, to kind of carry this along. Thank you.
Yes, it is a challenge. It's a challenge for hearing people too, because they have no idea if it's right, and it's not their fault. We're not blaming them. You assume that everyone's the same, that they have the same experience as we go through school. Give them hearing aids and interpreter. We've given them support services. They should be fine, but it's a lot more than that. It has a lot to do with access to language and how they perceive the world. Because deaf kids experience everything differently that they do. I was explaining to someone, I was talking about how we can experience the exactly same thing as my brothers and sisters, but my experience is totally different because I'm deaf and they're not. So, for example, recently, I had a family thing. My family, we all came together. And for them, it was fantastic. They talked with aunts and uncles and all of that. But because my uncles and aunts and cousins all live far away, I don't see them often, and I didn't see them often growing up. So they're not as good at signing as my immediate family. So for me, those get-togethers are boring because it's only people that I can really talk with, and that's easy for me, is my immediate family. But those distant relatives, you know, we write notes back and forth and gesture and things, but it's a very different experience for me. But it's the same experience, it's the same family reunion, we grew up together, we experienced the same experiences, but my perspective is totally different. So family reunions, they're like, oh, I'm so excited, and I'm like, oh. So, and I love my family, I'm not saying like that, I do, I enjoy them, I enjoy get-togethers, they're wonderful people. But after about an hour, I'm done. So, yeah, it's a different, it's the same experience but different perspective. And also I've talked with some other people about this before. Many words and that if I didn't know what they mean, when I saw them for the first time, I had no idea. But everybody else knew what they meant, and I was like, oh. But this maybe words people would say, but they wouldn't write. One word was frankly. Somebody recently, it's not in print much, right? So I never read it. And then I saw it in a movie, and I was like, what is that word? Something to do with the name Frank. So I was so confused. But you hear that within, conversations out and about. And same with the names of people. I'm really bad with remembering names anyway. So, but I don't have the benefit of hearing someone calling someone. Bob, Bob, someone will say Bob, and they'll turn around, and then I'll know that's Bob. And they can pick up people's names just by someone's calling out Bob. So that blonde guy over there, that's Bob. But me, that goes straight over my head. I don't have that exposure. So I meet Bob once, I forget his name, and then I have to look at him. It's that guy, Okay, Bob, yeah, Bob. So you have the benefits of information that's coming into you all the time. And I'm constantly searching out information myself. So it's a very different experience. Yeah. That's you got.
I wondered, have you ever noticed the difference in humor in your research of young deaf students? I read an article about students with learning disabilities and about the age 12 when the general population moves into more sophisticated humor. That students with learning disabilities have a hard time with that. And I linked it to, yes, I see that among deaf students. I had a party and invited a bunch of high school deaf students, and they each had a joke to tell around a circle. I don't know, 10, 12 people. And everybody laughed. All the jokes were connected to deafness. And years later, here at the university, the students came to visit from time to time. Everyone said they didn't get any of the jokes, even their own personal joke that they don't. And I was shocked by this.
Yes, it's definitely different and related to humor. It's definitely related to culture because ASL has its own language and culture. And so sarcasm does not translate well. They're very blunt. Deaf people say it as it is, period. But to describe part of the culture, they would say, oh, that woman's a little bit large, And so the hearing person said, but a deaf person would sign this. And they don't mean to be rude. That's how they describe the person. That's what they look like. They just say it as it is. It's not to be sarcastic. So sarcasm really doesn't translate well into the deaf culture. So, and sorry, we don't really make fun of you hearing people or anything like that. But sometimes have some things where we make fun of hearing. Do you want one? You want a joke about hearing people?
Oh,
Yeah?
yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes? Yes? Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, this is kind of a classic. Okay, I have to try and think about it. Which one? Okay. There's two coworkers. One is deaf and one is hearing, and they work together in the same, office, big office. They don't work together, but they know each other. And so the person signs, the hearing person doesn't know what they're saying. So then one day, the hearing person's car broke down at work. The car broke down, and so they couldn't get home. And they have a long commute. So, what do I do? What do I do? And the deaf person said, oh, come on, come with me. I'll drive you. So, we live the same way. So fine. So they get in the car, and the deaf person's driving on the freeway and everything, and then you can see that it's going 80, 75, 85, 90, just going, and the hearing person's like, hey, look at that, look at that. And the deaf person says, oh, it's fine. And the hearing person's like, oh, okay, all right, you're gonna get pulled over. I know you're gonna get pulled over. So, and sure enough, they get pulled over, the police, and the hearing person's like, oh my God, I don't know how to sign. How are we going to communicate? What are we going to do? They're going to blame me. Oh my God, what do we do? They're stressing out. And the deaf person said, oh, shh, you just sit right there, calm down. And the policeman comes up, knocks on the door, deaf person rolls, and we go down, yes? The police says, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and the deaf person points at their ear and says, oh, and the policeman says, oh, you know what to do. Slow. Oh, got it. And the police walks away and leaves. No ticket, nothing. The hearing person is flabbergasted. What? Oh, okay. So then they keep going on the drive home, and again, the deaf person's 85, 90, left foot, and again, they get pulled over. Same thing happens. Police stop, they don't know what to do, they wave them, no ticket, they get excused. After the second stop, the deaf person says, I'm tired, do you mind driving? And the hearing person said, oh, sure, fine. So they switch. The deaf person puts the seatbelt in, goes to sleep. And the hearing person's driving. Okay. Oh. So he starts to the metal, and he starts going 85, 90. And so then the motorcycle cop comes over, pulls him over. And the deaf person's still sleeping, so the hearing person's like, I got this, I know what to do. Oh, hello, yep. Roll my window down. Hearing person points at their ear, and the cop looks and says, and the cop starts signing. Oh, luckily my ears are deaf. I know how to sign. And the hearing person stopped. So it's kind of a classic episode, kind of making fun of hearing people who don't know anything. All right, I thought I saw another hand go off. Is there anyone else?
So, the students that you worked with previously before you came to the program, and when they graduated from high school, what kind of careers did they choose? I mean, since language would always be a barrier for them. What opportunities?
Yes. Well, it's very varied. There's no one deaf student is the same. They all have various interests and goals. Some students are fascinated working with their hands. So some become mechanics, they work in construction, carpentry, welding. There's a lot of skilled welders, and they make more money than I do. Than I will ever make, because they're so skilled in welding. And so many do that kind of work. And a lot of deaf men are really attracted to that type of work, working with their hands. And some of the students that have higher linguistic skills and maybe go into deaf ed, they become teachers of the deaf. And some others, really it just varies. Some are culinary arts, and the culinary arts is popular. and also cosmetology, social work. So really, it does vary. It's all over the map. I do know one student that became a firefighter and works for that, but it's really sad because many students who go into cosmetology school, really they're very skilled at doing the hand part, but it's the chemistry part as far as having to read. You know, there's a lot more chemistry involved than you think in beauty school, you know, that it causes them to fail and they drop out. Some are involved in restaurant work, retail, but a lot of them go, you know, it's limited because of their level of English. So some maybe if they work in factory type jobs, if they have okay English, passable I would say, they can have different type of careers. But really it depends on the student. Really it breaks my heart when I see a student who wants something, but they don't have the reading and the writing skills to get themselves there. You know, they have the hands-on physical skills to do a job, and really it happens a lot, and it's very unfortunate. Many students, you know, they have very successful careers. Maybe not the career they want, but they do have successful careers along many different avenues.
One of the things that struck me was how much more accessible your work is making poetry and books to students. But I wondered, are resources being made available for novels and for poetry and short stories to be turned into the types of work that you're doing, either from publishers or in education?
That's something I'm trying to work and figure out right now. I was just discussing with someone, how can I publish an ASL translation? You know, it's not a book, that's obviously not gonna work. So really trying to figure out, you know, maybe a PDF or YouTube in relation with YouTube, working with e-readers. So those kinds of things, working with how we can best do that. But really, I wanted to make it accessible as possible. I want it out there for the general public, for teachers, for students to be able to use. Because back in the day, some of the translation problems was with VHS. And that costs a lot of money. And DVDs cost money, so many schools already, their budgets are limited, so they can't afford that. So the best would make it all digital, and then it can be sent to as many places as possible. There's one deaf school in Georgia. They're kind of on the same page as me. They're starting to work on some translations themselves. Yeah, they got a grant, so that'll be free, which is fantastic, you know, and I've been able to use some of their resources, which has been wonderful. But I want to sell it as educational material. That is gonna be difficult. I still have to figure out how to do that to make it fair for everyone, you know, but not make it too costly. And the important is to make it as accessible as possible and cheap as possible. And we have the technology now with the internet, everything, that we can get it out. It's a lot faster than we could 15 years ago. Before we had VHS or DVD. So something in the process, trying to figure that out. It's so new, no one really knows. So we don't have a game plan yet. So doing the translations and hoping that we figure out a way to do it and provide it. Other questions? Nothing? Okay, thank you for coming and suffering through an hour of my presentation here.
Before everyone goes, I want to thank you again. Can we have a little gift? And before everybody goes, please take food. There's baggies, so you don't go home empty-handed. Please come and see us next month when Lloyd Sheldon will be speaking. And then make sure, again, mark down Friday, October 17th for our all-day conference. So great. Enjoy the rest of the summer.